Laiti burger. I'm going to make today a no-knead bread based on the reportage from Mark Bittman of New York Times and his interview with Laiti from the bakery. We're starting out with the ingredients, just 3 of them. 3 cups of white flour, a little over a cup and a half of water, a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, and a teaspoon and a 1/4 of salt. It's all very simple. A little yeast. He says a 1/4 teaspoon. Well, my yeast is a little expired, so I use a little bit more, which is not a big deal. Salt, a little over a spoon and a 1/4 is also not very critical. I have at times forgotten salt or put in too much. It's not a critical item. And now comes the part where I'm doing a little bit different because Jim, he has got this beautiful, well, kitchen. He's got a bakery basically. He goes in with his hands. Well, that's too much of a bloody mess for me. So for starters, we turn it all around so that all the ingredients are, reasonably mixed. And because after that we really don't do anything else, and so it needs to be reasonably mixed. So that we're talking about, okay, now comes the water. I pour it all in one go, and we'll see how that works out. Jesus, I'm making more of a mess than I normally do. And of course, my method really, I like to say that I don't like to have too much flour spreading around my kitchen because I'm the one that has to clean it up, while Laiti probably has got some Laiti that can do it for him. So I'm trying to be thrifty with my time and effort here. Okay, this is looking just a little bit too thick for my taste. A little bit more water. You can't really go too wrong. If it's a little too thick or too thin, it's not really critical, I found. Anyway, I guess 1.5 cups isn't fine. Depends also a lot on how dense your flour sits there. Eventually I'm going to go to a method where I'm actually weighing flour. That is a lot more. I'm an engineer and I like to see things precisely and being able to measure. Well, this is basically it. Now, that's the dough. Now we leave that sitting for 12 to 18 hours and I put it on the freezer in my kitchen and we'll come back. Well, this is basically what it looks like, and you know, it's a little bit runny, so that's really right. By the time it's all bubbly and everything, it'd be really easy to handle. So 12. Today I'm making a no-knead rye bread based on Mark Bittman's reportage with a bread maker or baker in New York, Laiti. I modified a little bit because I like to make not too much of a mess. So what I got here basically is 1 cup of rye flour and 2 cups of white flour. A little over a teaspoon of salt. And yeast. He says use a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. I use a little bit more because my yeast is a little expired, but I know it works. So that's this here. Now I also like to put in here today some 7-grain stuff, which I don't really count for anything other than the moisture. So let's see, that looks about right. And I should be happy with that. And salt, yeast, and now comes the water. For starters, with this particular one, we have to really blend the flours quite well because rye flour doesn't rise, so it needs to be really evenly spread around. So I do that for a couple of minutes. It doesn't really break the energy bank here. Okay, and now comes in the water. and I pour in all of it. So it's not that critical. So, as you can see, I don't use my hands because I'm not really that intimate with my food here. I like to be keeping a little bit of a distance, so. If you really want to, you can actually drink a beer or a glass of wine on the side, because there's really nothing that says you have to do that in a real hurry. But anyway, again there isn't quite enough water, so I'll go get a bit more. Yeah, the dough should be quite sloppy really. So let's see how sloppy that makes it, right? Yeah, I've only made this particular bread once, but it's delicious, and I've never managed that before. I always end up really seriously dense breads before this, and that just won't do it. Okay, this is just about it, except because it's being rye, it does need a little bit more, so the hell, here we go. I'm happy with that. It's wet enough for my taste, and see, it runs a little bit, and when it's bubbly in 12 to 18 hours, we're going to come back and bake it. And it goes somewhere in the kitchen where it's nice and warm. At the end of 12 to 18 hours comes the time to get ready for baking. So I don't have a cast iron, French oven or Dutch oven, whatever they call it. And so I use a clay pot, which we used to actually, German thing made called Römertopf, and it worked really well for me. So that goes in for about 45 minutes into the oven, on 500 degrees, and then comes the next step, which I'll show you tomorrow morning when the pot is hot. The dough has now rested for about 13 hours. My oven is at 500 degrees, and we are ready to put it into the container. Okay, off comes the lid and the gloves. The dough looks beautiful, and I spoon it in here or shovel it in here with all the bubbles. So, a little wetter than normal, but hey, it doesn't matter. Okay. I shake it a little to level it out. Put the lid on, and in it goes for 30 minutes. Half an hour has gone by, and now it's time to take the lid off. Very simple, no mess, right? Okay, here we go. Now this is extremely hot. You've got to have some decent glass. But you see, this bread's already looking beautiful, so be good. Another 15 minutes. Time of 15. There we go. Already, the second 15 minutes without the lid have been done, and our bread is ready. Now, take it out. Normally it sticks a little bit, just enough to use I need a spoon, and then here it comes out, and that's my thing for today. Thank you. And here a close-up of my white bread and the crumb. Not spectacularly big, but quite acceptable. And here my rye bread, where I replace 1 cup of white flour with a cup of rye flour. Altogether a sexy affair. In fact, the lightest rye bread I really have been baking in my life. And that was the end of this for now. I'll put the camera away and see when I can cut this all together. Ah.